Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
I want to welcome you this morning to Diversity. The reason we've asked you to come and speak is that you are just full of knowledge about not-for-profits, and particularly about Just Dane, not-for-profit. And the reason I think this is so timely is because the federal government, thank you very much, has cut funding to a number of organizations, and perhaps not for this budget year, but certainly for next year, and certainly for agencies that have anything to do with the DEI. Um, I particularly was intrigued by Sabrina Madison, who went on record to say, we're not changing our mission, we're not changing our name just because President Trump doesn't like it. We are who we are, and we will continue to state that mission and work that way. And I know Just Dane is the same. Um, I am particularly interested, and I think our people are too, in what you have to do to raise money. Um, let's start with grants. I know you have to write requirements for grants, but I have no idea what that means. Where do you get your information? And I know you are particularly good at having grants come in to Just Dane. So tell us about that first, if you would.
Yes, thanks for having me, Pat. So, in my time at Justine, so I've been on staff for 8 years, and I hadn't done much work in the grant area. We would do some, grants from RFPs for the city and United Way and the county, and a variety of grants would come our way. Maybe some community organizations, service organizations, smaller grants. Um, but I think more opportunities came our way. Organizations became more aware of the work that we did when we changed our name to Justine in 2020. And sorry, I have to say it's okay, it's being recorded. And so just as people recognized us more and our work was highlighted more, we would have organizations, reach out to us, or people that were affiliated with foundations, and request that we submit a grant application. And I would watch for, you know, we've got the Steve Stricker American Family Championship grant for several years. We've had several Otto Bremer grants, Oscar Rennebaum grants. Um, but this in the last year, I noticed that well, we were losing some federal funding. And so I decided that we needed to diversify a little more. So I'm using a grant platform called Instrumental that sends grant opportunities my way. And so I just when I'm not out in a meeting or doing something else, I'm applying for grants. There's thousands of grants out there, and so I'm just putting myself out there more.
Yes,
We get
you have a reputation, Kathy, um, for being able to sit down with anybody who's willing to give grant money and getting more than they started out planning to give. So, but what goes into a grant application? What do you have to say? How do you create, a specific requirement for because Just Dane serves a very specific need in reentry, the reentry community. So you know, how do you choose what to go after, and what do you say? What's required of you?
well, for one thing, and my executive director, she's brilliant, Linda Ketchum. So she's been doing this for a long time, a grassroots organization that she's helped grow to the size that it is. And so one thing we never do is chase the money. We
What does
don't say there's money out there, so let's let's say we're doing something or start something, you know, so that we can get that money. We have historically grants wanted you to start something new. And that's still the case with a number of foundations where they don't want to fund wages, they don't want to fund infrastructure because they say that's not sustainable. If you depend on us for those things, that's not sustainable. And I understand that. However, at an organization in particular like ours who don't do direct service, and I think it's the case, whatever. But what we provide to our clients, although we connect them with several resources, um, is that social capital and that connection. So like people that come to Justine, they say, you know, it's the one place that they don't feel labeled, that they're seen, that they're respected, you know, that they're valued. And so the most valuable thing that we give them are the people that connect with them, the people that believe in them, the people that they have accountability to. And so if you really want to invest in the work of Justine, I mean, the best investment you can give is unrestricted so that we can pay those people, right? Where, you know, like a food pantry, they need those staff, but you know, that makes sense that you're giving money to buy food. Um, so historically, they're like, okay, what are you going to do new? And we'll pour some money into, you know, like capacity building or well, capacity building can be more helpful than a grant that is like start something new. But
Yes, I know that that's
so
something.
so my boss has just gotten very creative at saying, okay, well, we can do this. This would be an added um, resource that we can have for the people that we serve. Or, I mean, over the years, we've started so many new programs or um, supports. So So I know, like you, sorry, I
That's
go
okay.
down this rabbit hole to explain that. So like we don't want to just chase money or that we're overextending ourselves and we're putting more on our staff, you know, because then you can just become mediocre in everything that you do. Um, so especially like you want to look at the foundation and you want to know what their values are. What's their mission as a foundation? What are their values? And make sure that you align first thing. Do we align with their mission, vision, values? Because you don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste your time or their time applying for a grant that doesn't even align with what they're trying to um, achieve. But you know,
Let me ask you a
you,
question about, let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let me ask you a question about one of the things that Just Dane implemented and received money to do, and that was to put a peer support specialist in charge of a particular demographic of people, older people who have been in prison a long time or who are more aged. I think it's what, 55 to 60 or 70. That the money that particular donation was specifically to hire somebody on a part-time basis to serve that particular demographic. And so when you say that that Just Dane tries to align their mission with what various foundations do or say they want to support, they suggest things or Just Dane suggests things that
so
we think will get their attention. That's
so
how that works.
okay, so like in that instance, so like we're not chasing money we applied for an Oscar Rennebaum grant. I applied for that. We're not chasing the money with that. So like we're already helping people. The
Yeah.
majority, I mean, a huge percentage of the people that we serve are 55 and older. Many 65 and older, several right now over 80. Um, so we're already helping these people. Like, so our staff is overextended sometimes, like because when people come out, we help them get connected to jobs, housing, other resources within the community. And that's a particular set of needs when they are aged and coming out, right? Because depending on what they went in for, oftentimes they can't go into an assisted living or a nursing home because of the rules, right? And so, and if they've been in there long enough, like some gentleman that has been in there over 50 years that our staff went and helped out last week. Um, they don't have, they haven't put anything into Social Security because they
Right.
haven't been out to have a job where they have any kind of Social Security check coming in. Some of them have worked for years, pennies on the dollar, and so they have, you know, some money when they're coming out. But many of them still need to work. Um, and so to be able to find a job that would hire someone, what would they be capable of doing physically? So so that being said, so our staff's trying to cover all these bases, but the need was growing. And so to find a resource specialist that focuses on seniors in particular made sense. Right now, she's only part-time because that's what we have the funding for. So we know, understanding a couple of things. Foundations oftentimes will shift their focus. You know, we'll be in like the sweet spot, and then we're not at the sweet spot, which makes sense because there's, you know, thousands of nonprofits. There's 3,500 in Dane County alone, but there's different focus. They have a different focus maybe for a decade or so I knew, so I called and talked with Jen about, you know, what they were focusing on. And when I have the opportunity, I'll do that. And I built relationships in the community, and my boss has built relationships in the community, just to have a conversation with them. And like, what are you really focusing? And they'll usually say on their website, but I also had insight uh, that a particular board member was very interested in supporting reentry work. So they were focusing on programs that helped older people. But then there was this element of reentry. So Linda and I had that conversation, understanding, I mean, that the fastest growing demographic in the United States is aged within the prison systems. So anyway, so I had a conversation with her, and she felt like, she said, maybe send me like two different ideas, one sentence each, and I'll tell you what I think would, you know, would probably. So then from there, again, Linda keeps it all in her head, like how much things would cost. And I mean, it's just a skill from over the years. And so we came up with a grant presentation, and they gave us $75,000 for, and knowing like what are they giving? What are the amounts that they're giving? Um, and so that's how we went about that. So understanding, I guess, the nuances of the work we do, and understanding, um, I mean, I think I'll just get better and better at being able to write better grants, right?
Uh-huh.
The more that you do them. And they say that the average is that you get 80% no's when you do grant applications. But our average has been a lot better than that. And we just got a $500,000 Wisconsin Partnership Program grant. And that was, we talked about it for a while. So this is like in partnership with the UW. We have two professors that are doing research. Um, the implications on health of the impact of Healing House. So over 3 years, we do this study. We'll be able to add some additional resources like mental health resources, um, and someone that can, some health workers or some community workers, I guess the term is, that will help continued support for people that are coming out of Healing House. Um,
Kathy,
and
just so people know, Healing House is a Just Dane program, and it is a recuperative um, house for homeless people who've had surgery, who can, instead of being put back out on the streets, now can go to Healing House. In fact, just not the individual, but their entire family is taken care of through that recuperative care. What's unique, by the way, it's the only one like it in the United States, and it's just amazing. But Kathy, this reminds me to ask you this question. You know, I serve on circles of support, and I know that part of the money that comes to fund the staff behind circles of support comes from United Way. And we all know United Way gives money to all kinds of organizations in town. But what I was surprised by, I didn't know that they don't just give it to you. You have to show how you're using the money. That was a big surprise to me. We need every meeting we have with the people that we work with, we have to fill out a form that says what were the goals that we set, what did we do, how did they respond to them. So over a period of 6 months, and we had to turn it in every month. And we have to turn that into to United Way, what, every 6 months or so, to validate that the money that they have given to Just Dane is being used as we said it was going to be used. Is that the way it works?
can I finish what I was saying before and then circle back to this?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So with Healing House, my point with the Wisconsin Partnership Program grant is that not everything that we do is necessarily just putting unrestricted funds, not all the funding that we have. So that we will be able to make some expansions. But the biggest thing with that is we're adding all of these additional elements in so that we can show research that shows the implications of the work that we're doing. Like, what is the impact of the nation's first 24/7 emergency medical recuperative shelter for families with children?
Mhm.
And so that, I mean, around the country and around the state, other places are looking at what we've done. We've helped, 175 families since we opened in 2019. And 40% of those under the age of 4 um, have been our guests. So anyway, so that will hopefully lead to more sustainable funding overall and show, in the United States, the impact of that, so that we hope that more of these will open across the country. So yes, we're getting some funding that will pour into Healing House and make it better, but the majority of those funds will be showing the impact to hopefully lead for more sustainable funding. So we get that kind of funding too. And your question about United Way funding. So, we have contracts, we put in RFPs, and we have contracts that we do for the city and the county. And we keep extreme records on what we do. So like every meeting, everything that every hour that our staff spends, how they spend it. So we have done that for years. which is helpful to us when we're applying for some grants, because there are a lot of organizations that don't really track what they're doing or track the impact of what they're doing, because it takes a lot to do that. And so we've been able to show, like, for instance, we're able to show that recidivism in Wisconsin is between 65 and 70%. But when they go through our programs, it's between 5 and 14% over all these years. United Way told us and United Way is keeping these for, like, they follow people for, like, I don't know if it's like 3 or 5 years. And it was last year, the number was like 1% for the people that we had worked with. So yes, so United Way, it's very detailed. Like, it's more like it's more of an RFP through United Way, where we have to put in for funding, and they are actually shifting some of their focuses. Our Journey Home program is a signature United Way program. Um, it was Dane County's United Way that saw the need for reentry work. It was the first in the country to put any funding into reentry work. And we are the only ones that have ever been provided those services for United Way through through the Journey Home program. So yes, we have to keep. So so when you're looking at funding, you also have to look at, like, do you have the staff to do the reporting for the grant?
Mm.
And so there are, federal grants, which we're losing some considerable federal funding, which will hurt our Just Bakery program, and hurt it hurt Healing House. We lost some HUD funds for Healing House, mostly like a per diem, um, because the rest of our Healing House is just fully philanthropic gifts. Um, but that's where it comes in. This is where I'm looking for unrestricted funds from foundations, and more of them are going to that. They're like, okay, we see the good work that you're doing. We just want you to be able to continue that. I mean, that's the best gift that someone can give to an organization that's doing good work. And I understand accountability and all of that, but if an organization has a history of doing good work, and managing their funds well or whatever, um, they're starting to realize, where the need is, so we'll just give you the money and you put it where the need is. Because a lot of funding is restricted. Like, even through the county, we don't get paid to help a lot of people that we pay, or to help a lot of people that we help under a county or city RFP, because they don't meet all of those requirements, but we're still going to help them.
Hmm.
So that
I see
funding
that.
just has to come from the money that we raise.
So, Kathy, let me ask you. We talk about foundations, and United Way is a foundation, right? So,
Well,
is it? I mean, I'm so ignorant about this. There are foundations, there are philanthropists, and then there are what other?
I suppose it is. I guess I haven't officially thought of that. I mean, like True Stage Foundation, they've given us considerable funds over the years. Before we opened Healing House, they gave us $500,000, and they've given us, 300,000 multiple times. This year, they've gone away from multi-year grants. We got 150,000 this year for Healing House. Roots and Wings.
I understand
Uh,
foundations, that foundations give money, but philanthropists, evidently, Madison is full of philanthropists who choose where they personally are going. I'm going to use the word endow, where they personally endow organizations like Justine or others. And you and I recently attended an organization that features philanthropists. Who are these people? Are they just wealthy people? How do you get in touch with them? Do you have to get introductions? Do you meet with them? How does that happen? I'd like to meet some philanthropists. I could use some philanthropy, but how do we go about making those contacts? And what do we say to them? Yes, they have to be aligned with our mission, if you will, with Justine's mission. But who are these people? Who are they? And how do you tap them on the shoulder and say, "Hey, look at us"?
That's a good question. So, like in my mind, a couple of things. So, I'm not, uh, my history is long and winding of how I ended up in development work. So, like, I don't have official training for development. My husband and I were in the ministry for 20 years. We left the organization that we were in. I went into the for-profit world, did some sales and learning how to network in a broader group. Um, and then I served on the board at Justine for a couple of years. And I'm like, what can a middle-aged white woman who's not experienced that trauma in her life um, bring to these causes? Like, I mean, I went to Justine, well, at the time, mom luncheon, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to be a part. And that's how I ended up on the board. So, like, I, I see development. I mean, I've gone to some conferences, and to be honest with you, some of the approaches don't mesh with they don't mesh with who I am. Like, I could maybe raise significantly more money in a meeting if I went about it that way, but like, I'm about relationship and authenticity, and like the person that is giving to us, like, I want to make sure they feel valued and they don't feel targeted. And I would never want to take advantage, say, of an older person. Like, I wouldn't want their children to feel like that they were being targeted for their money, that sort of thing. So, like, for
Ooh,
me, development is getting the word out there. That includes our website, our social media, like our presence in the community, our staff out there doing the good work, um, our volunteers, our volunteers and supporters sharing the impact of our work. That's all a part of development for me. And philanthropy for me, like, I want it to be a culture of philanthropy that people understand that whether you give $5 a month or you give 20 million, like, it can still be philanthropy at whatever level. Like, I don't want people, I don't want it to just be an obligatory, check, which we'll take too, right? Like, because we need the money to run. Like, so if that's the level that you want to give at, like, we appreciate it. We understand that people work for that money. And for some, definitely a sacrificial gift. But I want people to understand, like whatever you give, your time, your resources, your acknowledgement, like, that all helps us do the good work that we do. And so, um, we're trying to build that network of some larger donors. And part of that is getting better known. Like, we've had a lot of significant monies from, like Ascendium and Roots and Wings and those sort of things, because we're known for our work. And
yeah.
so, um, I I don't live in the realm of people that have money. So, like, I need introductions, and there have been times, like, that I've been introduced to someone, and then, I've been able to develop that relationship where they give significant amounts of money. Um, Organizations that are very effective have people on their board that are in those circles that can introduce their development people to those circles. So like that's a strength that we need to develop more at Justine. Um, but
Well,
you know, more and more people, that's all I know. More, your work has to speak for itself.
well, that's the thing, though. What's Just Dane serves a very particular population that most people, and I say this as someone just like I'm talking about, most people don't know anything about a population of people who are being released from incarceration and have to re-enter the community. I had no idea the difficulties that they faced. And I know that some of the work we do is that education to show the difficulties that this particular population needs and needs help with. So because it's a particular, it's not the hungry people, it's not the, it isn't a population that is readily identifiable as needing support. I think many people think, well, people are in prison, they paid their dues, that's their problem. I think that's a general feeling. And to have that population to understand the necessity of helping these people re-enter the community and become proactive and positive citizens is a big deal, but people don't know about it. And one of the things I think that Justine does well is collaborate with other not-for-profits whose services mesh with theirs. But I think that you are facing a particularly steep climb to educate the giving world, I'm going to call it, about the necessity to serve this population. And I know I've seen some of the people that you know and contact in the different ways. It's also PR. You do a lot of PR too, as well as development. So, um, I don't even have to ask what feeds you because I know what feeds you in this work you do. But I think most of us are really ignorant of what it takes to make the connections, to do the work, and to keep it coming. And when the government cuts out just the basic things you depend on, what you call the unrestricted funds, when they go away, you can't pay staff, you can't help the people that you're devoted to. So, um, uh, surprise, where do you go? So I'm putting it out to all of you people, anybody who knows millionaires, would you get in touch with Kathy and and see what we can do? Kathy, I just want to tell a couple of stories so that people get a sense of what happens um, when someone comes out of prison. Justine has a staff uh, headed by people who have been in prison or who have had families in prison who understand that not only the individual who has been imprisoned for whatever, they are not the only ones being punished. They're not the only ones who have to pay for the criminal deed. The entire family, and sometimes their entire community, pays for it, but family particularly. And I'll tell you a story I'm not proud of. When one of my grandchildren lived in Burlington, Wisconsin, she lived in a neighborhood. They lived in a neighborhood of mostly older people. Except across the street, there was a single mother, supposedly a single mother, uh, who who had a 5-year-old daughter, the same as our granddaughter. And we knew that that little girl's father was incarcerated. And we didn't know, now think about this, we didn't know if it was okay to let our granddaughter play with that little girl because her father was in prison. The mother and the child were also in a prison. They were in a sociological prison in the community. And Just Dane responds to that with mentoring programs for families. But I think that stories like that help us understand what a strange population this is that most people aren't aware of. Um, I've served on a number of circles of support, and I've worked on circles at Just Dane with people who've been in prison 50 plus years. Imagine them coming out of prison, being handed 2 weeks worth of whatever meds they were on and a few dollars, maybe not even any clothes except what they were handed to in prison, coming out, and now they're on the street. They're on the street. If there isn't a place like Just Dane for them to go to and get support, to learn how to write a check. Oh my God, to know, to learn where you go to get insurance, to find out how to get your medications paid for. I mean, that's what they're faced with. And that's what Justine does, in collaboration with things like the Salvation Army and St. Vinny's and the Road Home, and I could go on and on. But without those contacts, these people, this population, are are impossible to live, you know. So
Yeah.
that's where we are. And when we talk about recidivism, for a lot of these people, it's much easier to go back to prison
Yeah.
to live in Madison.
Well, there are several communities that won't allow people to return to the community, like Cottage Grove. Like they're one of the strictest. Some Prairie has restrictions.
No kidding.
There are communities that they cannot, like, um, one of our clients, um, I think he went away as a juvenile, and when he came back, um, he couldn't even go into his parents' house. He could
Uh,
sit in the driveway while his mom brought him out clothes. Like, I don't know if he was 18. So he couldn't go back to his support system because the community, I believe that was Cottage Grove, wouldn't allow him to live within the city limits. And so, and the fact is that he couldn't even go visit his parents. He couldn't, it was a nonviolent crime too. So like, I I don't know all the ins and out. I just hear these stories. So like, so even if they would have a support system, oftentimes they're not allowed to, you know, live in the home for whatever reason. Um, so it's important that they have us so that they have resources, and affordable housing is so limited anyway. So then, um, during the Walker administration, it became allowable to discriminate against anybody with a criminal record, no matter what that criminal record is. And so they're up against that in addition to the lack of affordable housing. Oftentimes these people will end up in housing that ends up costing them more for
yeah.
a piece of junk than if they lived in a really nice apartment, just because that's where they can live. And I understand, like, I'm an empath, and
Mm.
I hit a point where, like, I mean, there's so many needs in the community. Like, I hit a point where, like, I feel like I don't have the capacity to care any more than I already do. So, like, there's so many needs out there. And so, I understand in my work, not everyone is going to have the capacity to care fully about the work that we do, right? Although, like, so a lot of times they're like, oh, they're a criminal, they deserve what came to them. And so, they don't even think about, like, okay, what if it was someone that was being abused, that a woman that struck back at her abuser, but she went to prison for it, right? Like, but that she's still a criminal. So
Mm.
like, I think too, I think it's that case with any of us. Like, we fear maybe what we don't know. Like, there's the unknown, there's fear, but I guess any kind of diversity, like, as you get to know people, like, it humanizes them. So whether it's uh, a gender thing or a race thing or a criminal record thing. Like you start to care about people as you build relationship. That's the beauty of community, right? So um, oftentimes when people start supporting us, it's because they had someone in their family or a friend or whatever. All of a sudden, their world is impacted by the
Yes.
criminal justice system. So they care. Also, we see it as our job to educate the community on these things. That's why simulations, and we do a lot of advocacy in the community because people can't that you can't really care unless you have some knowledge about something, right? So to make people aware. And there's so many good nonprofits and so many good causes. So like people just have to decide what it is they have the capacity to focus on and then be supportive of those. Like I don't think I don't go out there saying everybody should give to Justine. I would love for everyone to give to Justine, but I also understand like there's all these needs across the board. So like I just think that if it's a more philanthropic society, like where everybody decides that there's something that they're going to give to, whether that's their time or resources, it just creates a better world. And for us, like our organization has been sustained. So we celebrated our 50th last year. Our organization has been sustained over the years by a lot of people giving a little bit. So there's the myth that, well, I can't be a philanthropist because I don't have a lot of money. But as a development director, it's really meaningful to me when I get a $5 a month check, right? Like people give according to their capacity because they're a monthly partner with us. So they're in partnership with Justine, which means they care about our mission. They're talking to people about our mission. They're watching the work that we do and they see it as important. And so, um, I think oftentimes people won't give because they're like, I don't have the capacity to give a lot. Like every dollar that comes into Justine, I'm thankful for, and they get a thank you card. And if just because of capacity, like if at any point someone gives 250 or more, like which we have several people that have the capacity to be able to do that, even into the thousands, they get a personal letter from me. And then they get um, our board writes handwritten notes every year to people that have given through the year. Like we want them to understand, like it's an important part of our work. As our volunteers help multiply our impact, the people that support us financially, like they're in true partnership with us. And so I
I
I
think
don't
that's
want
so important, Kathy.
I don't want people
Sustain.
to feel limited. Like I'm not a philanthropist. Like if you are giving generously, if you are giving, you can be a philanthropist at a small dollar amount. Like it's the spirit of the giving.
I love it. That's the key to giving, I think, is the spirit to the giving. And I think it was so important for you to say that, um, that a sustainer who gives $5 a month that's money that because it's sustained giving that the organization can count on for their budget. And I had to think about that to understand how it worked. But I also want to go back to one thing you said about about people not understanding the spirit of what Justine does. Um, we all talk um, about holding people accountable, but we also talk about the fact that, and this is what I learned, that just because someone commits a criminal act doesn't make them a criminal. Yeah, there are really maybe some bad people out there where that's true, where that's not true. But for the most part, I think about the kids that are in juvie and people that I've worked with that have been in prison for years and watch how they've changed grown, contributed. Just because somebody did something wrong doesn't, or as somebody, Brian Stevenson said,
They're
we are not our worst act, that's not who
we're
we are.
more than the worst thing we've ever done.
That's it.
Hmm.
That's the one.
Yeah. And I think all of us know that, like all of us, you know,
Yeah. Well,
whatever entered into the situation that they ended up there. Many of us or our kids or something could have ended up in a similar situation. I think what helps with Justine, I'm always thrilled when someone wants to fund reentry in particular. Um, so like I'll even encourage them, just if you're going to give to reentry, earmark it for reentry because um, people will give to our Just Bakery program because they're like, well, people are doing something about their situation. They're going into a class, like
yeah.
or our youth programs. They'll fund they may fund our youth programs because they want to impact youth and they understand that they're victims in this whole cycle. Or Healing House, the fact that, these families sometimes like sometimes it's because they've had a child who has such severe medical needs that they can't put them in daycare. And so they lose their job and then they lose their home. And we can bring them in and they can get connected. So I think we have enough different things that we do that we're able to engage people in different ways. Um, So, like, if people will give unrestricted, we can keep all of these balanced, but they can also earmark it. And then another thing that I'm trying to build um, is our planned giving. We've had some significant gifts left to us that we didn't even know were coming.
Hmm.
But oftentimes people are like, I don't have the resources and I don't know what I have with the economy, how much of that I'm going to need. Um, but people can give they can earmark money, a certain percentage of their estate or a certain dollar amount, and it's revocable. So it's like they're not committed to that, and they can do it, like tertiary or like okay, if I don't have children when I pass away, then that money can go here, and if that's not the situation, if that person is not there, then it can go here. Like they can choose to do that. So I think sometimes people they want to partner, but they can't partner financially right now. But they can say, when I don't need this money anymore, I want
Yeah.
it to go, to whatever. So like for all of you listening, whatever, like, maybe there's some cause that you really want to help, but you know, you can, like, we have free will on our website. Like you can go in and you can do a free will and then you can take it and get it notarized. There's a link on there, free will. And then in there you can allocate funds. Like I'm going to give, 1% to Justine or 5% to Justine or $500 to Justine. And you can also pull up other organizations so that if there are other organizations that you want to allocate that to. Um, and it's just a way for people to be a part of the sustainability of an organization where they can't currently be a part of that, but it's a legacy for them to say, and it doesn't have to be any large dollar amount or,
You just you mentioned something that I hadn't thought of. And, I always say, well, my goodness, if I can't give money, I can give hours. That's that. But that volunteers are really an important part of your money raising
yeah,
aspect as we talk to people. I have to tell you that when I first moved to Madison, I went to RSVP, Retired Seniors I don't know, RSVP. It's part of a national organization it's like a clearinghouse for volunteers, and they have specific programs that they do, and they interview you when you go in, and they said, so what do you want to volunteer for? And I said, animals and food. And they said, well, you can volunteer over at the Humane Society. It's a 6-month training program. And I went, no, 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 no. I'm retired. I want my freedom. I don't want to have to show up, for a class to learn how to volunteer. And then they said, oh, well, then you can work at a food bank. You can. And so I did. And I worked at a food bank, and I was in a little room with people who were on work release from prison. And I was looking at cans to see what their expiration date was. I did that for days until I thought I was going to shoot myself. So those were not right for me. But what did I learn there? I did learn about young women who were in prison and how they were farmed out to places like a food bank to do this kind of work. So there are so many opportunities to volunteer. The Red Cross, we know the big ones. We know United Way. We know the Red Cross. We know Salvation Army. I don't think that as a group of women like us, that we know all of the places there are that you can
Yeah.
either give hours or give money or even just talk about. So Kathy, I guess for you, we are in many ways, you depend on people like us to talk about the work that we do. I just have a question about Justine. Is Porchlight not an organization that was started at Justine and spun off to their own after they got going?
So we've spun off over 50 nonprofits over
Oh
the
my,
years. Most of the senior coalitions, which lost funding a few years ago, but the organization that started the men's shelter was a Just Dane initiative, which then merged with another organization, became Porchlight. Somebody else has a question, Pat.
I didn't see it. Who, any questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me? No,
Yes.
Yes.
you can't. Oh, this is Barbara Peterson. You were just getting into, Kathy, what I wanted to hear. I have two questions. Well, first of all, my daughter is the executive director at Solus, and I wondered if you are
Oh,
familiar with that.
absolutely.
Oh, wonderful.
I, um,
I wondered if you
is she,
collaborated with them at all.
so was she the nurse or doctor that started it?
No, she
Okay.
is a nurse and doctor that worked with the gal who started it, but now she's the executive director.
That's awesome. I talked with the doctor who started it prior, like before we started Healing House. She came to one of our fundraisers for Healing House, and had talked about her dream. But I know
Yes.
she's worked with our executive director.
Her name is Jane, and it is her dream, and they're the only one like their operation in the
Yep.
United States. Well, there's one more out east in DC.
Yeah,
Um,
they did work with Linda, to talk about how we started Healing House.
Good.
And we just had a participant that we had worked with um, through our programs who passed away there.
Oh,
And
I'm so glad to hear that.
our
That sounds
staff was
strange, but
our staff waited out with him
oh,
there,
that's
where
great.
they were able to be there with him.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that you're collaborating and working with them. This is just wonderful. And Pat, that might be somebody we want to have speak sometime too. The other thing I wanted to ask Kathy was volunteer opportunities very quickly. What do volunteers do for you?
So we have on our website at any one time, if you go and click on the volunteer, they'll tell different things. But we've had people that just come to Healing House and rock babies so moms can get a shower or maybe spend time with their other kids, or, people that come and drop off. There's always a wish list at Healing House. We have people that will come and drop off snacks once a month, or we have people that serve on circles like Pat serves. We have people that mentor our youth. We have people that'll come, just once a year and work at our mentoring connections. These are kids impacted by parental incarceration. Um, We have people that will donate like gifts for the Christmas party, but people that will just come work the Christmas party, maybe work a craft table or help pass out the gifts to the parents to give their kids, or we do a cookout in the summer for those same kids, and we'll have volunteers that'll come work that. We have people that will do mock interviews over at Just Bakery so that these people that our students are learning soft skills. And I don't even know all of the different opportunities that we have. We have a volunteer and community engagement manager. But there's people have come and painted, the bakery in the summer, or there's a variety of ways. And we just encourage people to talk to our volunteer person and say, these are the skills that I have. Are there any opportunities, or to come to our reentry simulations and be a community member? Maybe you're running the credit union. So our simulations they simulate what the first month of being out of incarceration is like. So people have to go cash checks. So maybe you work at the credit union, or maybe you work at the job center, that sort of thing. So our simulations are very impactful in the community. So with that situation, you get a email anytime there's one coming up. So you can volunteer for as many or few of those as you want. So that there are a variety of things that volunteers can do. Pat probably knows more than I do because she's been a volunteer for so long and done so many. But yeah, we do have sometimes. So like Healing House, we get meals donated. So if you guys are familiar with the Road Home Dane County, they used to be a shelter, and churches in the community provided meals. Like they would actually provide a place for the people to stay for like a week, and they provide all the meals, and then they move to another church at night. So when the Road Home quit being a shelter and just getting people in, all these churches, all these volunteers loved making meals. So now they make them for Healing House. But we might go a whole month that no one has signed up. Or we might have a point where all of a sudden we need a meal for the night. So sometimes people will get on that list so that an email goes out if they have the ability, or the availability to make a meal for that missing day. So there's a lot of different ways that volunteers will come over and organize the donations at Healing House, that sort of thing. So
Healing House is just so amazing. First of all, it is an example of what can happen when not-for-profits collaborate to take care of a problem. If you can imagine a woman that's homeless and pregnant, goes in the hospital, gives birth, and without Healing House would go out on the street with her newborn or into her car or whoever's couch she was surfing on. Instead, she can go to Healing House for a whole month, and her other kids or her significant other can go and live there with her, so that that baby has a safe place at least the first month of its life. And by the time they leave Healing House, they're healthy. They've made connections. The Road Home has worked with them. Social workers have worked with them. They're no longer a pariah, a piece of nothing on the streets. They are real people that have really been helped by other real people. And it is unbelievable to see what happens. And I also have to put in an ad for simulations. That's what hooked me. I went to a simulation. I had no idea what it was. And I think some of you heard John Givens talk about it a few months ago. I showed up and they said, oh, you can work at the job center. And suddenly I was role-playing the job center for about 250 people that were pretending or role-playing that they were ex-prisoners who had just been released. And I watched them line up to come and see me, the job center. I even had a sign that I could put out that said, office closed, so that they would understand what it was like for these people who would show up and stand in line for a couple of hours to just put their name into the job center, right? And sometimes they had to come back 2 and 3 times. And oh, yeah, they had to take 3 buses to get there. I mean, I could go on and on. There are so many opportunities. So if you ever want to see what it's really like for this population coming out, participate in a simulation. Send me your name and I'll put it on their list. It's a revelation. And what's really exciting is that so many students who are studying criminal justice, psychology, sociology, who participate, as Patty Coffey talked to us about, who participate as part of their undergraduate and graduate programs in a simulation, are people who serve on circles with me. So there's a circle, which is 5 or 6 people in the community, is made up of a bunch of different people like me and a woman who's on my circle who's been a professor at UW, a Buddhist guy, another 2 young women who had been in a simulation, participated, who are undergraduates. And we meet with these people one-on-one. We get assigned an individual that we circle for at least 6 months. We help them find out where to go to apply for jobs. We help them know what banks to deal with, how to open a checking account, how to deposit any money they have. Just the very basic things. We help them set goals that are realistic, maybe. We help them if they've been scammed. Oh my God, a guy that I worked with got scammed by somebody who said they had an apartment to rent him. Yep. And so he gave them his PIN number and they took $2,600 out of his account within minutes. And so I was on a circle. I went to the bank, and I'll tell you, the Associated Bank, where he had deposited his meager earnings, and they put the money back in his account, and they took it on their own fraud program. But he didn't know. I mean, these people coming out, if you've been away for all these years, or even if you've been away for 6 or 8 months and you've lost all your contacts and people don't want to know you anymore. And then Kathy, I'm just going to say something about the fact that Just Dane is one of the few organizations of this population that helps sexual offenders. And I'm mentioning that because a sexual offender could be a 20-year-old guy who's dating a 16-year-old girl, and she gets mad and says that they had sex and it was not consensual. This guy can be arrested and go to prison because somebody got mad at him, and for the rest of his life, he is a sexual offender. He's on the list. Think about it. Of course, there are real sexual offenders, and
Yes.
help them as they come in too. But these people who come out with a sexual offense on their record cannot go to a public library. They cannot go to church. They cannot go to a park. They cannot stay with their relatives if there are people in the neighborhood who are, I mean, it's our Department of Corrections has a lot of problems, but individuals can help one by one. So Kathy, thanks for talking to us so much.
Can I
Yes, you must.
can I add one thing? So I just wanted to say, like, I'm sure people listening and support different organizations, but I want to encourage you, if your development director reaches out to you, wants to have a coffee or a phone call or whatever, just know that those meetings are meaningful and they're not necessarily like that they're trying to get more money out of you. I love being in the meetings with our donors because it creates a synergy where the generosity meets the mission, because people want to have a legacy, and so they want their generosity to count. And it's important to us to have that connection, to know like what makes you want to support our organization. It's a powerful relationship, and yes, I do. It is my role to give people opportunity to make impact, to have some sort of legacy with their giving. So like, I'm here for people that want to give, to make that possible for their gift to make the most impact where it counts for them, to figure that out. So yes, I do need to have opportunity for people to give more, but I also, that's not the point of my meetings. It's just to get more money out of them, but to build that relationship and just allow them to understand what that partnership means to our work, and to get feedback. Like, what do you see that we're doing is good, and what do you see the need, what else would you like to see? So if you're the development director reaches out to you, just know that, it's meaningful for them, and they're not just after your money, that they
No, Kath, that's good. You put it together for me anyhow, is that, and you use the word, I think, spiritual, the connection that we give money where our hearts live. We give money to places that have meaning to us in one way or another. And I will go on to again say, you don't have to give money, you can give hours instead.
Mhm.
And just for example, Centro Hispano, that's another thing that Justine does. They have worked with Centro Hispano to help set up circles of support for people who don't speak English. We we work with the Literacy Network. I could go on and on. It's so exciting to see what's available in our community in Madison, and that there are so many places where you can put your heart to work, as a volunteer or as a philanthropist or a sustainer. So that's my ad for this morning. Thank you so much, Kathy, for spending time with us. Appreciated it. Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and to all of you as well. Thanks, Kath.
Same
Bye.
to you all.
Thanks. Recording over.